If you are interested in starting your own podcast, we use Buzzsprout because it is simple and easy to use. Buzzsprout can get your show listed on every major platform while giving you the resources for a great podcast website, audio players that can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening to your podcast, and tools to promote your episodes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and that is why over 100,000 podcasters are already subscribed to Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in our episode descriptions lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you. So in return, you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card from Buzzsprout while signing up for a paid plan. Most importantly, every subscription through our link is always appreciated and helps support our show so we can continue delivering the quality content that you guys listen to. That being said, back to the show.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Junkies. I'm Andrew,
This is Joe.
and this time we're coming at you with our possibly last list, at least our last age-based list. If you're new here, we've already done like a little series of these: Bronze Age, Silver Age, Copper Age, Modern Age. So what naturally is left? The Golden Age. It's kind of the one that started it all. Obviously, a lot of these books are big tuna. First appearance of a lot of the major characters in comics, and there's certainly not plenty of them out there. I mean, a lot of these came out in the 30s and 40s. So yeah, we're going to kind of go down our list. Little disclaimer, not necessarily all hard data driven. Obviously, that's a part of our ranking, but we're also kind of going on vibes, character, significance, a little mix of stuff there. So yeah, you want to kick us off? Get right into it?
Yeah, let's get right into it. So, with our number 10, we have All American Comics 16. And the only thing I have to say about this is it's the first appearance of Green Lantern, Alan Scott Green Lantern. Nobody is a big fan of Alan Scott that I know, but
They're
it's
all
just the
dead.
just the creation of the Green Lantern in general, like just the identity, the character, the lore, and all the sci-fi goodness that comes with it. I guess more important than what's in this book is the books that it might have beat out. It was hard keeping like Robin off the list. It was hard keeping Archie off the list, Aquaman and Green Arrow. So many books, but I mean, just the name Green Lantern alone, I feel like would have to make any top 10 list when you're talking about the Golden Age of comics. I wish I had more to say about this book than that, but that's really all it is, in my opinion, unless you have something to add?
Don't
No.
have a ton to add.
But there's a lot to talk about with our number 9 on the list. So that's going to be All Star Comics 8. So, most importantly, the first appearance of Starman and Dr. Midnight joining the JSA.
Hell
It,
yeah.
it's also the first appearance of Wonder Woman. Hippolyta, so Queen of Themyscira, first Hercules, first Steve Trevor, first appearance of the Amazonian race, first Paradise Island, on and on and on. And it's in a similar price range to a lot of the books that I listed prior, but Wonder Woman, I feel, is so substantially more significant than those characters. And kind of what I've alluded to over the past lists, there's been enough time where it's kind of easy to figure out like what's better than what the further back you go. But I still feel like there's room to grow with this book for some reason. For it to be just a little more expensive than like a first app Robin is crazy to me, or like a first appearance of Green Arrow and Aquaman. So I think it's slept on this list and theoretically could be way higher. And so I have no problem putting it in our top 10. I'm comfortable putting it at 9.
Yeah, I when I was doing research on this too, I was surprised that like some of like the higher sales or even like the average sales were a bit lower than you'd kind of expect given how popular the character is. But I think part of it might also be that like her early appearances are spread across like three books. I mean, All Star is like the definitive like first app, but like not long after there's already like a Wonder Woman 1, there's a Sensation Comics, and different Sensation Comics arguably has the better cover since she's right on it. There's kind of like a muddying of the waters around Golden Age Wonder Woman, but at the same time, like Golden Age Wonder Woman's like the best Wonder Woman that you're gonna get as far as collecting. And I mean, she's one of the big three, so I feel like it's gonna hold up regardless.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get one of those three books, I mean, we're saying All Star Comics 8 is the best of the three, but you're absolutely right. Because if you take a look at Action Comics, he's right on the cover. It's his first appearance. But with Wonder Woman, she's not on the cover at all. There's a lot going on in the book. So I think you're absolutely right. I feel like collectors have a hard time valuing which one to get. And it kind of takes away the value from one particular book of the three.
Agreed. But with that, we're gonna move to another big Silver Age, now DC character. Number 8, we're gonna go with Wiz Comics number 2. Sometimes you'll see it listed as Wiz Comics number 1. It's not technically number 1. I think the number 1 was technically like the ash can that they did to like basically put out the character, kind of. There's no true number 1 because like number 2 is really number 3 and so on and so forth. So Wiz 2 came out in 1940. This is a Fawcett book. You got to remember this guy was out selling Superman back in the day. Granted, lawsuits and, the war kind of ending and horror books kind of getting a bit more popular kind of led to the downfall of Captain Marvel. But this is the first appearance and origin of Captain Marvel, who is now known as Shazam, the first appearance of the Wizard Shazam, first appearance of Dr. Sivana, basically his Lex Luthor, for those who don't know, little gangly little dork who hates his ass. First appearance of Ibis the Invincible and Spy Smasher, which are other Golden Age Fawcett characters, less popular, obviously. First team appearance of the Seven Deadly Sins. Originally the Seven Deadly Enemies of Man, which became the Seven Deadly Sins. It's loosely like a cover swipe of Action Comics number 1. I mean, obviously he's chucking a car as well. And yeah, there is a really scarce ash can version, which like you'll barely ever see. But really cool book. I mean, obviously, if you're not new around these parts, you know that I'm a big fan of Captain Marvel, not the Marvel one. So obviously, this had to make the list. I feel like it was relatively slept on up until the movies, kind of. I mean, the movies didn't exactly do it justice, but it did kind of get more eyes on the character. So now I've started to notice that kind of creep up even lower grades. Point 0.5 is probably commanding at least 20K, you know what I mean? But nowadays, I mean, it's probably even higher than that, to be real with you. But you know what I'm saying? It's, a good book, and I feel like the ceiling's only getting higher. This book is very old, from literally 1940. Can't be too many of them out there that are in, half decent shape. But one of my favorite characters and ultimately my dream book.
I got a question for you, and then for those listening, probably. I assume the ash can version is worth more.
I would say so, yeah, because there's even less of those. In fact, I don't know how many there really even are. I can't imagine. There's probably like one, but who knows? But yeah, it's got like a slightly different cover. It's very interesting. It almost looks like I think it was called like Flash Comics on the
But
front.
I didn't even know that there was an ash can version until doing research for this episode.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like it came out under Flash Comics, and it's a cover of him getting shot at by gangsters and him just kind of taking it. It's also with him like with the chains broken. It was kind of a way for them to get the character out there and like established before they could actually start like introducing the character.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't really have details on like where the hell those are, or how expensive those are at this
And who
point.
has the copy?
I don't know, probably a really old guy or at this point a really rich guy, but I don't know like like some billionaire love like, Captain Marvel like that. I don't know. Let's see if I could do some research on the fly here. I mean, for those who don't know, I'm on a dinosaur computer. I would say the ash can's actually probably not as expensive because it's less iconic and less people know about it, but it is technically more scarce. It's technically his first appearance because that's when he was Captain Thunder as well. Black and white. There's only 8 known copies, apparently. And yeah, it actually was Flash Comics, but DC already had a Flash Comics issue 1 that very same month. So that's why it got turned into Wiz Comics. So a little bit of history there for you. But it's a weird one. It's a fun one to like dive into. There's a lot of nuances and weird stuff going on with Captain Marvel in the Golden Age. So it's kind of cool to look through his old books and see what kind of weird stuff is up. But as I mentioned, Flash Comics was how Captain Marvel tried to get introduced. That same month, Flash Comics 1 came out at DC, which is our number 7 book. So, like Joe said, Green Lantern, Big Tuna, basically the concept of a character we all know and love. I'll say that most people probably aren't Jay Garrick fans as opposed to Wally West or Barry Allen fans, but This is the first appearance and origin of the Golden Age Flash, Jay Garrick. First mention of Keystone City. First appearance and origin of Hawkman, Carter Hall. First appearance of Shara Sanders, later becomes Hawkgirl. First appearance of Hath Set, the first villain of Hawkman. First appearance of Johnny Thunder, and the first appearance of, I should know this, but YZ is whatever. It's Johnny Thunder's Thunderbolt dog. So this is also like a packed issue, a lot of firsts, a lot of big firsts. Because obviously I'm a big Flash fan, that's no surprise, but Joe and I are both also big Hawkman fans and Hawkgirl. So it's very cool that they all kind of debuted in the same issue. It's definitely a grail. Because honestly, on this list, I mean, other than some of like the later books that are obviously some of the big status books of this era, Flash Comics 1 and Wiz Comics 2 are probably the two I would want the most, if we're being honest, just because I'm such a big fan of both characters basically all throughout their history. So it's a crazy book. It's a cool, iconic cover, and it eventually led way to Barry Allen, Wally West, and a lot of other concepts that I really enjoyed.
Sick. Going into our number 6, we got Captain America Comics issue 1. First appearance of Captain America, first appearance of Bucky, and first Red Skull. Also the first app of the inventor of the super soldier serum. One of the best Marvel books you can get, to be honest with you. We only have one other Marvel book on this list, but honestly, I feel like this book could outpace it one day. But because of where the sales are at right now, that's why it's at our number 6. But a 9.4 sold for over 3 million in 2022. So, I
Jeez.
mean, it can't go wrong with that book. These are all books most people can't afford, which is kind of why we made it last on our topics list because it's a little more for the imagination. But there really
Yeah.
are people that can afford these books, surprisingly. I think I follow somebody on Instagram that picked up a copy. And if you do, you could probably retire. But going into our number 5, officially the biggest Marvel book of our top 10 list, it's Marvel Comics issue 1. And it's not because of the first appearances per se, but it's just because of the significance of the book. So there are some great first appearances in it, though. Don't get me wrong. We got first appearance of the Human Torch, Kazar, and Dorma. Also, second app of Namor the Submariner. It's the first comic book published by Timely, which later becomes Marvel. And it was retitled Marvel Mystery Comics right after this issue. So, very significant historically, and only 80,000 copies were ever produced. The first printing actually sold out within a week, which is kind of crazy to me because I didn't think people were really collecting like that back then. But it was such a success that they reprinted it at the same quantity that they were publishing Superman issue 1 and reprinted it with 800,000 copies right after. So, kind of a similar note, I read that in 2022, the same year as Captain America, a 9.2 as opposed to a 9.4 sold for 2.42 million. So, I mean, if you're into Marvel Comics in general and want to bypass that first app of Captain America, this is the book to get.
Damn right. Yeah. And the more I was thinking about it, what is it? Was it Motion Pictures Weeklies or something like that, which is like the first name where I wasn't, I kind of, that one kind of slipped the mind. But I do think that this one's all around better with like the whole package that it kind of gives. And it's just an iconic cover. Really good book. But,
Great,
Marvel,
great
yeah.
call out because I brushed over it being the second appearance of Namor, but I feel like Submariner's first appearance doesn't get as much love as this book does.
Because it's got a weirder name, it's not as iconic a cover. I'm pretty sure, what is it? Motion Pictures Weekly, I think. Number one. Well, Motion Pictures Funnies Weekly. I knew it had funnies in it. I gotta just trust myself, dog. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like a book that you would expect to see Namor in. It's just, it looks like what are those characters in the more fun comics? I forget their names. They're goofy looking. It's more of like a Archie style looking cartoon book than like a superhero book. So I think that might be part of it. But I mean, obviously, this is like a huge book, probably bigger than it probably it should be on the list higher. But that's for another day.
Speaking of
Uh,
funny comics, it didn't make our list, but if you ever see it in the wild, Famous Funnies Series 1, Issue 1 is the first comic book to ever be sold on newsstands. There's not
Interesting.
really too much significance to the book itself other than that, but those famous funnies are actually a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's a big book. I mean, I don't think a lot of people even know that that exists. But let's start hitting up the top four here. Number four, what a surprise. Batman issue one from 1940. First solo series, obviously. First appearance of the Joker. First appearance of the Cat, Selena Kyle, who becomes Catwoman. Debut of the first Batplane, which has multiple designs. I mean, at one point, this sold for over $1 million. So, I mean, it's a big book. I think a record high actually of like 2.2 milli in a 9.4 condition too, actually. And just a couple years ago, even 4.0s were selling for about 288,000. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, obviously it's a big book. If you're a fan of comic books, you've seen the cover. It's Batman's first issue. It's the first appearance of two of his biggest characters in his rogues gallery. I mean, eventually Catwoman becomes like his lover and stuff. Like these characters are like to the core Batman. Iconic cover, and I mean, one of the best villains of all time, especially at DC. So I mean, it's bulletproof. If you can somehow find one or one gets willed to you or what have you, one of the coolest books in comics. Very similarly, at number three, we also have Superman issue one from 1939. So obviously, this is the premiere issue of a headlining Superman title. It's the origin of Superman. It's the first appearance of Ma and Pa Kent. And it actually is the first pinup poster in comics, which is on the back cover. And it also holds like a world record for the highest comic sale in history after an 8.0 copy sold for $5.3 million in January 2022. That doesn't sound right. I feel like I've done reason. Now I need to verify because I might just be speaking lies to you. Does that sound crazy? I thought that was Action Comics 1 that went for that much. No, it sold privately for 5.3 million for a Superman 1.
To be honest, we'll talk about it a little more when we go over the number two, but this could easily be a number two book. It's my number two in my heart.
Right. It's up there, but I just feel like in terms of significance, I feel like our number two book, it's hard to do issue one of they're tit for tat at that point. I don't disagree with you.
No, no, I
Um,
mean, it's so hard to argue until we talk about our number two. But if you think about it, our number three book, Superman 1, it's just the first appearance of Mom and Pa Kent. So, like, the actual content is, like, not as significant as our second book on this list. But regardless, if I could sell my whole collection to get that one book, I would do it in a heartbeat,
oh yeah, for sure. I would do that too. I mean, just the cover itself is so iconic. It's one of the coolest covers in comics, in my opinion.
especially
Um,
for a premiere issue.
right.
Like, are you
Yep,
kidding me?
had no business going that hard, especially in 1939. But yeah, what more can we say? I mean, let's
Bro, they
not
were
delay the
going hard
topic
in
again.
39.
Yeah, they really were. 39 and 40, they weren't messing around, dog. But all right, I'm gonna take us up to number two then. Numero dos, Detective Comics issue 27. So, like we said, this is a very significant book. I mean, everyone knows, but in case you don't, it's the first appearance of Batman. It's also the first appearance of Commissioner Gordon. They've also sold for over $1 million, I think like six different times. But the record high sale actually is only 1.8 million, or like a couple mil, which is like crazy. Especially when you just heard me say like Superman 1 sold for like 5, almost 6. So it's weird that Superman 1 would go for double, almost triple what these are going for, but that's just the facts. But at the same time, this is the first appearance of Batman, a cultural icon. People across the world know this character. There can't be that many of them out there at this point. You know what I mean? And people who have them aren't giving them up. And if they are, it's going to be for thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Because, I mean, just the merchandise, the movies, just he's the iconic character. He's like the most human character. I mean, everyone loves Batman. Do I really like what kind of spiel do I got to go on here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, do you like
Everyone
ice
wants the
cream,
first
pizza,
Bat.
and chocolate? Play the hits. I feel like it deserves to be higher than Superman 1, even though the sales for Superman 1 say otherwise.
I
So,
agree.
I mean, if I had that much money to spend on a comic, I'm a Superman stan, so I'm going to get the Superman 1. But in the same breath, I think that the Tech 27 would hold better long term.
Hard to say. I would imagine, but apparently not.
But I guess that leaves us with one last book. So, in case you guys didn't guess it, I'm just gonna read something from Comic Book Realm, like a direct quote, and see if you guys can guess it. All right. So, a space vehicle from a destroyed world lands on Earth, and its occupant becomes Superman.
Whoa. What could it
Action
be?
Comics 1. First appearance of Superman. You could say Clark Kent. You could say Kal-El. You could go either way there. Also, first Lois Lane. First Zatara. For those that don't know, that's Zatanna's dad. And I haven't read the book personally, but I kind of wonder what he was doing in that book and why he had business appearing so early in comics and why it took so long to make Zatanna if that was Zatara's first appearance. But moreover, famous Joe Shuster cover, famous comic book, even if you're not a Superman fan, the best book in all of comic books.
Yeah. There's not much to say. It sells for millions of dollars. It's the first appearance of like superheroes, basically. Like it's everything.
It is literally everything.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need other books if you have that book. Even if Superman's not your biggest guy, like if you have that book, you don't need the other books.
I
It's
know
the end
exactly
goal.
what you mean. It is the end goal. It is everything. I have no idea how many of these were made and how many people actually own one, but man, oh man, what I would do for a copy.
Yeah, and the thing is, there probably were like hundreds of thousands, if not more, that were printed, but just time and no one giving a shit has just whittled it down to where there's next to none. And now everybody wants one. Well, who's left of us collectors out there? But even then, it's still way too scarce for anybody to get their hands on within reason, unless you're like Nicolas Cage or whoever else that also had one, which is crazy.
It's like more than a grail. It's the book.
It's the book. It's like the Bible of comics.
Well said, actually. In fact, if I had money for both, I would probably buy an Action Comics one.
No, shoot. Well, the good thing is the Bible isn't as scarce, so you don't gotta worry. Unless you want like a first copy. Dead Sea
You
Scroll.
have so much money to spend, and you get the option between an Action Comics one and like the scrolls of like
Yeah.
people writing the Bible.
A fucking
Like,
chiseled tablet.
yeah. I'm for sure going Action Comics one, no doubt. Not
How
even
come
worried
this
about
scroll
it.
doesn't fit into my lore?
Yeah.
Can I send it in to get graded?
Right. Oh, no way. Yeah, this is my favorite piece of literature, period.
Facts.
Well,
But
kind of dry, but it is what it is.
yeah, dude, sometimes it is just dry, dude, but you just persevere. You take it in for what it is and you enjoy yourself.
Sometimes it's Bible,
Sometimes it is Bible. And if you want to hear some more good word from us, you got to go to CBJ Pod
some
on
scripture.
Instagram. Yeah, you want to see what's good? CBJ Pod on Instagram. Spread the good word. Be one of our disciples, a junkie, if you will. Tell everybody who's within earshot of you, just yell it. Comic Book Junkies on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, YouTube, anywhere that's on podcasts. I mean, rate, review, subscribe, anything like that. Share it. Doesn't matter. It does matter, but it doesn't matter. We're not beggars, but we appreciate it when you do it. We love hearing the feedback from you. We do have like a new thing where you could like text us your thoughts. We've gotten a couple of them now, and that's pretty sick. We'd like to hear the feedback. And yeah, I mean, you guys got any ideas or things you want to hear us talk about, any questions, anything like that, make sure to hit us up. And yeah, I mean, not sure what's on the table for next time. We'll put on our thinking caps. We'll get a good one out for you. But for the time being, all of our ages in comics that are at least documented at this time have been covered. So if you want to go back after hearing this, in case you're new here, Silver Age, Bronze Age, Copper Age, Modern Age, those are all in the feed as well. And yeah, it's another episode for y'all.
All right, guys. Appreciate you listening.
Later.